Two, is the problem only one part of a larger problem? When known methods cannot provide solutions, you must examine your methods and look outside the system.
Okay, I mean, we're 2 days into this conference. What impressions have you got with it?
My overall impression has been favourable. On day one yesterday, I felt that the presentation from Professor Robert Schiller was excellent. He brought home to me the fact that, everything that we sort of believed in the past, no longer applies. And we're not living in the world of mathematics anymore here. We're living in the world of ideas. Ideas that were relevant a few years ago are no longer relevant now. And I think that was sort of quite refreshing compared to a similar conference I attended at this time in the last bear market, where the industry was in a total state of denial. I think moving on from there, the session that I did today with 3 CEOs on the future of DC plans. Again, 5 years ago, we were getting quite a lot of pious aspirations about how wonderful this industry was, and then there was this temporary hiccup. Today, we had 3 very prominent CEOs being very open and blunt, saying, well, things are not going to be that easy from here on. And I think the industry is coming to terms with, some of its structural weaknesses and some of its inevitable vulnerabilities, given the nature of, the asset management business. So overall, although the messages haven't been very encouraging, I think there is a somber realization of the fact that there's quite a lot that we need to do as an industry.
I mean, I thought one of the interesting... this is the first time this conference really has, I think, focused on the issues in a major way. And it's been very exciting. I mean, There's been some fascinating speeches, very good panel discussions, far better than before. We've had better moderators, I think, yourself not least, actually moderating the thing. But I thought one of the best parts was really to take on from the Robert Schiller thing, was the whole business that perhaps we're in a new wave, a new major cycle, which I think Dario Frigerio brought out in his interview, and the dawning of new ideas, a new industry, and I think that's going to give huge food for the future of this type of conference and indeed the industry as a whole.
Yeah, I think I fully agree with that, and I think there is a realization that the old ways of doing things is a recipe for disaster in this new world that we have entered. New world where, the 3 standard deviation events seem to occur far more frequently than our mathematical models would simply imply. And at one level it shows up the vulnerability of the industry. I think another level it also sort of shows that people are beginning to realize that things have got to be different. And, they've really got to sharpen their acts. And also issues like transparency, liquidity, risk-return characteristics, these are not the sort of things that we talked about when I attended FundForum first time about 7 years ago. In those days, it was very much about, we've had a hiccup here, bear market is here, but, within the next 15 months, things will be fixed, and, we will continue our onward march again. This time around, I find that sort of people do feel that...
But there are still some issues, some very big issues that it's sort of, sometimes when you put it to one of the great CEOs, there's a sort of flinching, and one of the interesting ones was this business of the business model itself, where in the retail market, we spend huge amounts of money on stock selection. I mean, every investment researcher in JP Morgan and everywhere else is devoted to stock selection. And yet the single most important decision for the client, and we sort of sometimes forget the end client, is actually asset allocation.
Absolutely.
So what do we do with it? Yeah. We keep 100 basis points for ourselves for the stock selection, which is pretty worthless, and actually which we do terribly badly sometimes. Yeah. And then we give the asset allocation, the single most important thing, to a whole load of cowboys called IFAs, or worse, bank managers, to do, and we only give them 50 basis points for it. Yeah. So the whole thing is topsy-turvy. Now, when you put that to a CEO, there's a lot of, how do you think... Do you think this will change in the way in which it has in America? Do you think we will really get packaged products where we bring the asset allocation back into people who can do it?
Yeah, I think, the US and Australia are really paving the way for Europe in the sense that, there is a new generation of independent fiduciary advisors. These are gatekeepers whose primary oath of allegiance is to their end clients. And, they don't take commissions from fund managers. They don't place funds on the basis of the commissions that they receive. Funds are placed entirely on the basis, in this model, entirely on the basis of, who can deliver best value for client. And then they also have performance-related fees, and then they also charge fees for advice and so on. And I think that is the way forward, particularly as we move towards a DC revolution, because, Joe Public, they don't understand issues like asset allocation and so on. So I think, we're going to see that sort of thing in Europe. And what makes me a bit more optimistic than I was 3-4 years ago was that large fund managers are now recognizing that something like 50 to 80% of alpha comes from asset allocation, not from stock selection. Yeah. And so they're setting up asset allocation capabilities. Initially that is targeted at retail market, but outside countries like UK, that asset allocation capability is targeted at institutional market as well. So I think there are some fund managers who are really sort of smartening up in this particular area and developing those asset allocation capabilities.
I'm still a little bit concerned about the DC thing. I thought the bit that you did on DC, I didn't come out of it feeling really bullish, because there is an issue whereby what we have done is to swap shared risk in the defined benefit plan, where perhaps it might have been that the pensioner didn't get paid, to the whole risk being taken by the individual of both longevity and the equity market risk. And I just wonder, if we're going into a serious bear market, supposing we were going into something like Japan in 1988, can you imagine a Japanese pensioner invested fully in equities who's in income drawdown during the 90s and the 2000s, when what was worth $36,000 in 1988 when he retired is now worth $12,000,
that's right.
And that's 2 decades later. The poor man's in his box.
That's right. I think that point is really well taken. And recently I've been talking to DC plan sponsors, and there are 2 points that they're making very forcefully, which runs with the grain of what you're saying, Mark. The first thing is that, there is no point in really putting money into, say, these so-called lifestyle funds or life cycle funds, where there is this automatic switch from equities to bonds over a period of time. Because they're also sort of saying that, what you need is some kind of protection device, particularly when you have, 2 bouts of volatility in 7 years in a way that we've had in this decade. So they really want to have some kind of fail-safe mechanism there. The second point that they're making is really that they also want to have, over a period of time, some very significant capital protection strategies in place. Using derivatives or, using the kind of tools that investment banks produce, such that, Joe Public can actually see not only the pots grow, but also when there are major market events, those pots are not ravaged. Todd Rupert gave a number today which sort of say that, the average pot size in the US was $59,000. If I put that figure in pounds, that's about £29,000. It would be enough to buy a car. I would not think about buying an annuity with that, because I really couldn't do that. I think the governments, while they're persuading their citizens to go into DC plans, I think the governments are really going to put a lot of pressure on this industry. Kind of pressure which will bring about serious decoupling between manufacturing and distribution. And I think we will see this new generation of independent distributors. I think the second thing we're really going to see is a lot of pressure put on fund managers to really have proper alignment of interest with their clients, because under the current DC schemes, we're socializing the risk by passing it on to Joe Public, and we're privatizing all the gains by really rewarding the fund managers, even in the situations where they haven't really delivered. So I think there are the kind of pressures building up there. I've been talking to European parliamentarians, and they see that this current system, they see it as having the stability of an inverted pyramid, as a French parliamentarian called it. And it is an inverted pyramid, and that was what we learned today from 3 very distinguished CEOs, each of whom have got very strong aspirations in the DC market.
So all in all, a great conference so far.
I think it's been wonderful.
Have you met the people that you wanted to meet here? Because one of the great things about this, of course, is there are 1,400 people here.
Yeah.
You're going to one place and you meet more people in that period. It would cost you a fortune to go around and meet these guys.
That's right.
And for those of us who are consultants like you and me, where it costs us a bomb to do it, and indeed so many others. I mean, if the asset managers and everybody else added up how much it was going to cost to go around and meet all these guys, it would come up to an awful lot, wouldn't it?
Yeah. I think it's been a great networking event. What I've tried to do is to attend as many presentations as possible, but I've also allowed a lot of time for networking, and it's really quite nice to renew friendships and have exchange of ideas. I've had very fruitful exchange of ideas. I feel that I've learned quite a lot myself as well. It's been, all in all, a great experience.
So we're both looking forward to tomorrow and next year.
And next year.